Monday, and you know what time that is. It's time for Mentorship Monday with Michelle and, of course, the beautiful Maren. How's it going, Maren?
Hi, Michelle. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. We're here in December, and I am like, when I flipped my calendar and I was just finishing like end of the month stuff, and I was like, how did we get to December? Like, I feel like I was just in May. Like, how did this happen?
This year has gone by so fast.
It has.
Unbelievably fast. I'm
It
totally
has.
with you. I can't believe it.
And a lot of people are like, okay, well, as we get older, the years do go by fast. But you know what? And there is a lot happening as far as our time speeding up because, as we know, time is not, although it's something that we follow here on Earth, it's not existent. Time is not existent. And so we are speeding up.
Yes. So,
Oh, I know. It's like, where do I go with that one? It's a big concept. That's a big,
so
big
time,
concept.
yeah, and I've had it explained before where I guess time is, I mean, we do have the ticking clock that definitely keeps it very orderly, but
Mhm.
like they say, but time is very perceptual as well, where if you're doing something you enjoy, time seems to slip by. And if you're doing something you don't enjoy, time seems to creep by. And so
Mm.
it is a really
Yeah.
moving thing that we perceive versus that is concrete, except there is that clock that is
Yeah.
very concrete. But
And that's really like, there's like that. Sorry, I've got something caught in my throat. Ooh, I must have something that I need to spit out here. Um, it it it's almost like getting used to the idea of our multi-dimensionality as well as being human and having this human experience and living in a world that does abide by a clock and by hours. But what my guides have been saying to me is they've been encouraging me to work more and more with the element outside of time. And so that's something that I'm playing with quite a bit. And meaning, what can we do in other realms? What can we do energetically? How can we work energetically? And the saying of work smarter, not harder, right? That's part of that. Now, it's to be continued because I'm working through a lot of these things myself. So as I teach, I am also learning at the same time. And Eric has been working with me to really not lock in my thoughts to I only have this amount of time to do things and to work around that. So that one will have to continue a little bit later and tell you how that's all going because I feel like I'm working in two worlds all the time, but then again, aren't we all?
I need to learn that because I'm so stressed out with the holidays and the crunch
Mhm,
time and
mhm.
the Christmas shopping and how many weekends left do we have? And oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So
Yeah.
time. Okay. So don't worry about the time. I just need to do it. That's
Well,
my plan.
the thing is when you are learning to work with different dimensions. So we have to also remember like it's going to take some practice because it's also a belief system and everything we're working with. So I always say everything comes back to your belief system. So understanding and doing a little studying around quantum physics and on manifestation and synchronicity and all of those things. I trust wholeheartedly, Maren. Like, I mean, wholeheartedly. And I've told you before that I wait to the last minute for a lot of things. And that's part of, we were saying with executive functioning, that's just something that has always happened for me. In some ways, I work very well under pressure. I can get things done and well when I've got that little bit of pressure on me. But on the other hand, I'm really what was I even saying? My thought just completely went, oh, with Christmas. What I was saying was, when we think about December and I wait till the last minute, I trust wholeheartedly that everything that I would like to accomplish will get accomplished. And amazingly, things get done that end up happening that I haven't even gone out and done. And like, do my presents just get wrapped on their own? No, but I'm working on that. Like, I'm hoping that that does happen. But I mean, like, do we have the ability to experience more time? So these things have happened, and they've happened to others that I've spoken to as well. Like, for example, um, having a car ride, traveling somewhere, and I've asked for that trip to be quick, to not experience the
Yeah.
long car ride. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but it's like you get in the car and before you know it, you're at your next stop and your destination is done.
Yeah.
It's like, where did that trip go? It's that element. So I'm giving that as an example of that idea. So the same with, if I've got this list of things I'd like to complete, what am I delegating to my higher self? What am I delegating to my spirit team to help me with, to work outside of the time limits? Because they're not running on any schedule, right? But I will tell you that this takes a lot of trust and belief in some studying of how energy works, because it always boils down to that understanding, to really understand how energy works. So that one I'm going to have to come back to and explain more in depth, because I'm experiencing it right now. I'm working through it right now with my
I
guides
know.
and
Well, that's
helping
so
me accomplish what I
interesting.
need.
Yeah. So you said one time, I did a reading with you, and you said that I had an ability to, like, I don't know, manipulate time, you said. And so you're saying this, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is my ability. And then I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, you can wait till the last minute, and like you've been busy all week and you haven't had anything on your to-do list. And then last minute, you've got like 20 things, but somehow you can get them all done in that last minute time period. And I know that does probably have something to do with executive functioning and whatnot, but and then I have like, do you ever have where like you're like, I'm like, okay, I can't be late to this. So I'm going to set my alarm, or I'm going to start getting ready like a whole, like twice as long as I need, right? So if it takes me a half hour to get ready, I'm going to like do an hour to get ready. So I'm not late. And then you're still late. Like, how does that happen? Or like, you're like, I can't be late. I only have 5 minutes. And then somehow you're not late. And you're like, how did I get all that done in that tiny little time period? Like, I made it. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, like
Yeah.
time's tricky. Time's really tricky.
It
But it
is. It
is,
is.
it has, this year has gone so fast. And
Yeah, it
if
has.
it is true that when things are enjoyable, time slips by, then that means it's been a good year, right?
That's right. And I was just saying that too. I'm like, there's been some hard things this year, but that's life. Like, we're always going to have up and down, but I feel very proud of myself this year. I think you should feel very proud of yourself. Everybody listening should feel very proud of themselves, because we have all accomplished a great deal, with our belief system, with our emotions, with new experiences that we're starting to have, but most of all, we're still here and we're showing up every day. And like, be
Hmm.
proud of yourself for that, because sometimes that is the very best thing that you can do, is showing up every day, putting your feet on the floor and getting out of bed and saying, okay, here I am. Like, good job, me. Good job. Good job. You got up today. And that's something to celebrate. So I hope everybody is able to look at their life over this last year and be very proud of themselves. Okay, so here's the other thing I was thinking about. So when we talk about this last year and really the years of our spiritual journey, what I really want to hear from you is, what is, or maybe there's more than one, an experience that you've had that has really shifted your mindset. What spiritual experience? What, um, you know, whether it was something you saw or something you experienced or just something that stuck in your head. But can you share? Does anything come to mind that you would like
Okay.
to share?
Yes. So I don't know if this was I don't think this was last year. I kind of feel like this was the year before, but I haven't shared this story yet. So I kind of want to share this story.
Okay.
Because I feel like my development hasn't been that long. So like and I honestly, I don't know. Gosh, it's like hard to like even know where January started, and it's
Yeah.
all been a
Yeah.
blur since this has happened to me.
Yeah.
So I do have one story, and it actually is kind of ironically going along with our topic. So I want to share. Um, okay, so this is the one story, the one experience. I mean, there were several along the way, but since my abilities opened and I've been able to see spirits, this is the one thing that happened that I think really changed me and also made me ask the most questions that I still feel like I need a little bit of help answering.
Mhm.
It just perplexed me the most. So, I okay, I'm like, where do I start with this story? There's so much. Um, okay, well, I'll tell you this. So this happened back with the Ukraine war, and
Mm.
it was right when the Ukraine war first started. So it was like week one of the Ukraine war, and Sunday night, I was meditating and I had a man come to me and I was seeing like a balm imagery and he told me we were at war and I was like, oh my God, like we're at war. What do you mean? And then I realized that he was a soldier and he needed to be crossed. And that was my first experience in crossing someone. And then later in the middle of the week, that Wednesday, I was doing a meditation and I was connecting to my spirit team. And then after I was done connecting, I always would say, like, are there any messages I need to hear? And then this woman came in and she told me about how her leg was blown off and she showed me the building she was
Mm.
in. And I said, well, where are you from? Like, I didn't know if she was from Russia or Ukraine. I was like, where are you from? And she said, Lviv. And I was like, Lviv, that's not a Russian Ukrainian like name. That sounds like a Spanish name, like I must like, am I just making this up, But then I heard a spirit guide clarify and say Little Rome. And I was like, okay. So I got out my map after my meditation and looking at like all the like Ukrainian towns. And I couldn't find one that um looked like Lviv. I wrote it down. When I meditate, I like write down everything I hear, so I spelled it Lavive, Lviv. And I couldn't find anything. Like it's all very long words. And at this point, the war was only in Kiev. And I hope I'm saying that right. And so then I Google Little Rome, Ukraine. And this like 5 second, literally, possibly 10 at the most second YouTube clip pulls up and it says Little Rome, Ukraine. And it just like is like a shot of like a downtown corridor, like doing
Mm.
that. And I was like, oh my gosh, but Lviv was spelled Lviv. And I said, oh my
Mm.
gosh. And I said, surely it's not, you don't pronounce it like Lviv. Maybe it's like live or something, like, so then I Google Lviv, Ukraine, and you could whip Wikipedia and hear the name and it's like Lviv. And I was like, oh my goodness, this just happened. This woman just came from Ukraine to talk to me. Like, why? I don't know. And, anyways, so then that Friday night, it just like kept building, like this just kept getting stranger and stranger. So then that Friday night, I'm laying in bed, about ready to go to sleep. My kids were at my mom's house, having like a little fun grandma sleepover. And I was laying in bed with my husband. My husband, he went right to bed. And I was kind of like up and I looked at the end of my bed and there was a man standing at the end of my bed. And his
Mm.
hair was kind of frazzled and it looked like he had kind of like a overcoat kind of a thing on. And and he was just at the end of my bed and I just kind of like got shocked. And I think I said like, why are you here? I can't remember, but I could see him laying on the floor of a building and like in the glass you could see a reflection of like fire. And so I could tell
Mm.
that he had been in a fire.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, you need to go to the light. And he said, I'm scared. Can I hold your hand? And before I could even say yes, I felt this like wave of heat run across my hand. And and then I was like, oh my gosh. And I wasn't scared more than it was just such this like really intense energy. And it was
Right.
so hot, like so intense. It didn't
Yeah.
like burn me or anything, but it was just intense.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just
Intense.
stuck
Yeah.
me into a sauna. So I kind of panicked, right? Like he wasn't scary, but the situation of the intensity was scary. I was like, oh my gosh, you need to go to the light. And I had asked you at this point, like, what do I do? How do I cross spirits? And you said, just call on Archangel Michael. He'll help you and tell him to go to the light. And so I was like, oh my gosh, Archangel Michael, help me. He needs to go to the light. And literally he just like, it was like something from like a spaceship movie, like a Star Wars movie or like a, Star Trek movie. He just like his whole body was like enshadowed in light and he like zoomed off through the ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, did I just see that? Oh my gosh. And then I smelled like, when you burn your hair in a hair dryer, like I smelled that burnt hair smell.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
like was so intense. It to the point where I was like, do I need to like go check on the furnace? Is there like a furnace fire right now? Like this is
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
intense.
Mhm.
Um, but the second that he like zoomed off, um, the like air got a little bit better. But
Mhm.
then like literally 20 seconds later, I was like, oh my God, I feel it again. And there was another one.
Yeah.
Um, And that one was pacing back and forth. And I could hear him tap my window and then walk on my wood floors and then tap a window out of my bedroom, then come back in. And so I feel like he just didn't understand that he was dead and he was like, you know,
Mhm.
pacing. And it took me a while
Mhm.
um, to get him to cross. And so I was like, sir, you have to go to the other side. You have to go to the other side. Like, you don't need to worry about the
Yeah.
war. You got to go to the other side. And I kind of kept trying to talk to him and talk to him and I couldn't get him. He was just pacing. And I asked him to show himself because I could only hear him at this point and just like sense his presence. And so then I saw this I said, you need to show yourself. I saw this like pile of rubble. And at
Mm.
first I was so confused because I thought like, why am I seeing this pile of rubble? But now obviously hindsight, I realized that he was probably in the pile of rubble. But anyways, he was just going back and forth. And then finally, it wasn't until I was like, your family, you've got to think about your family. You got to go to your family. And um, he like, it was like the second I said the word family, he
Mhm.
left and went to the light. And I heard this big, like, and it was like a full chest had hit the ceiling. Like it was that loud of like a slam into
Wow.
the ceiling and he was gone. Um, so that was like, that was just the most physical and
Yeah.
dramatic experience I'd ever had.
Yeah.
But the questions that it left me with were like space and time questions because I thought, okay, here's this man who's just passed away or is like possibly dying because he's scared and he wants to hold my hand. And he's in this burning building and his body was still intact. I assume he died of smoke inhalation. And um and he's somehow magically got into my bedroom. Like, how do you go from like a war in Ukraine to like a lady's bedroom in America? So like, what is
Yeah.
he envisioning? Is he seeing himself dying in a room in Ukraine and then in a lady's bedroom? Or am I somehow, my spirit is somehow with him in that building in Ukraine? Like, I can't imagine that his death experience has to do with going to a stranger's bedroom.
No. And it's a little bit of both because everything in that experience and see, and remember as I'm saying this, it's not one size fits all for everything. However, there are some common denominators that do happen in a lot of these experiences because we are all connected. We also travel in soul groups. So if you think of, and I use the pizza analogy, Eric always gives that to me with using a whole pizza. If you think about the whole pizza as let's say our whole pizza this time is your soul group, and let's say um, because you can have smaller groups of souls. Okay, so in other lifetimes, and actually I'm getting more than one lifetime, you may have interacted with this soul. This soul is not seeing you as Maren, but it's vibrational. So there is a light, so think of a part of your spirit, because we've talked before about your higher self or your oversoul assisting in crossings, which many of our oversouls do, especially those of us that are doing this work. We have an awareness that there's more that goes on that we may not consciously understand how it's taking place, but it's vibrational. So what I'm getting from that specific experience is that he was out of his body. So his body, the body is actually already gone. He's out of his body. But there's such a shock and such a despair over the situation that it's creates some confusion. Now, here's where it gets kind of tricky, because vibrationally, there can be more than one different direction. And when we think about guides, and there's a part of you that shows up like a spirit guide to him. But I get a grandmother energy that's recognizable to him. And I don't get that he sees your bedroom. That's how he sees it all. Actually, the space that he's in is dark, and there is a light, and he can see the light. Him sitting on the edge of your bed, I'm not getting that he's seeing you as you. I'm just getting that it's a light that he sees, and it's comfort that he sees, and he knows that you represent warmth. That's what I pick up from it. So vibrationally, we have to remember, like, why, and I get these questions a lot, like, why does this soul come to this person, or I never knew this person in this life, why in the world would they ever come to me? It's vibrational. So think of these pathways all exist. There's all over the place. Remember the time, I've told it more than once, about how I walked out in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and saw all those lines, all the green lines all over the place, like a grid, and they were moving. So I could see like little, it looked like a zoom, like they're all zooming through these little, like the grid was alive, right? It was all moving. So that was to show me how we're all connected. It was to give me an example. Well, these pathways will light up. So why would he be pulled to you? Why would he be pulled to you? Well, there may be something in your vibration that's very similar. There could be similarities in the soul, similarities in that pizza, that you come from the same pizza, maybe not the same slice, but the same pizza. And you were, in that moment, the most available and brightest light. Now, there's another little piece above that as well, or another little layer, which is part of a soul contract, in that we have many souls that are representing more than one thing for each other. So he's come to you to help you recognize, and it was the experience to help you recognize far more than the physical body, to have you question these things, to have you dig deeper. And that's what a lot of our experiences are. And a lot of people say, well, I had all these big experiences when I was at the beginning of my awakening, and then things started to quiet down. Well, a lot of times we have those types of experiences so that they make us go, oh my God, like, to not forget that, so then we have something that we are working through to seek. So there's a contract to that experience from his oversoul and yours. So we're working on multi levels, and we're not always going to have that awareness. Now, are there times that souls come to you and they know exactly that they're in another space? Yes, they do. But we also have living souls that can come to us in astral travel. So, there's, and I don't know if you've experienced any of that. I've experienced it in dream state or in lucid dreaming, but not while I'm awake or conscious, that I know of anyway. But that particular experience is very interesting, because when you said, like, they're showing me like open for business, so you help that soul. It's like those pathways just and opened up to allow more
Mm,
to come through.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
whether they see it as a space that they recognize, but they're showing me darkness and light, seeing light, and you represent that light, and your hand is something that he had visual awareness of. Your
Okay. Yeah,
hand.
because that was the other thing was so weird. Is like I'm visualizing him at the end of the bed, and he was standing, and I was laying, and then he says, you know, can I hold your hand? And before I could say yes, I obviously am feeling this wave of heat, and I'm like, wait a minute, how did he get from the end of the bed to my hand where I'm laying down in like, you know, a split second? Like it just is unbelievable. So he just saw it and had aware, or maybe even like our auras are so big where we perceive the energy that my hand's aura could have even been at the edge of the
Yes.
bed, or
Yes.
his, you know, we met in
Yes.
the middle or something.
Yes. Yes, and that's very true. Like, and this is that whole like when we were talking just in the beginning about not defining ourselves to space and time. Okay, so think about a healing. When I'm doing a healing
Yeah.
and I'm doing a healing with somebody that's in Australia, and that person is laying in meditation, and I am laying my hands on their head. I'm laying my hands on their shoulders. And people have felt that. They feel that
Wow.
energy, they feel that warmth, they feel that heat. So if we think
Yeah.
about that, we are not restricted by space and time. We are not restricted at all. So that's why we can attract anything from anywhere. It's not just what is in our physical radius. We are so much bigger than that because we are everywhere. And this brings it right back to the understanding that we are God. We are that energy. So again, let's go back to the pizza. God is the crust. God is the crust of the pizza. And we are pieces of the pizza. We could be the pepperoni, but we are still God. Because you would never say, I'm going to eat the pizza and the pepperoni. We would say, I'm going
Mm.
to eat this slice of pizza, right? We
Yeah.
don't separate the pepperoni and the cheese and the crust. We have it all together. So that's what we are. We are that same energy, but we are focused in a space and time for an experience. But we have all of that with us. So when we understand that and when we incorporate that to our belief system, the possibilities are endless because that is who we are. God has split himself off. God has created, doubled his pizzas and pepperonis, put them all out all over the place. That's Eric that does it. Eric always uses pizza and things like that to explain things, or chocolate cake and all kinds of things. Um, but that's, I mean, a good analogy to kind of understand what
Yeah.
we are part of. We are part of the whole.
Yeah. That makes
That makes
sense. Yeah,
sense.
it was unbelievable. I definitely felt like compassion towards him, like when you say that grandmother figure, but then obviously
Mm-hmm.
we are all part of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it could just be that. But I did feel like a strong connection. But then again, he was like literally one of the first people that I'd ever crossed, and it was so powerful and so physical. And I mean, how many times are you going to hang out with like a dying man? So like, you know, there was a lot to like bond
Yeah.
us in that moment.
Yes.
But I did definitely feel that compassion. So whether it's because I'm a
Yeah.
grandmother figure to him from a past life or just a soul family, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. And but
It's
it
pretty.
is weird too that like I felt so much compassion for him and not necessarily the man that was like on patrol. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I guess maybe because there was like vulnerability with the man that the head was burned because he asked to hold my hand. So you know, I think when
Yeah.
people show
Yeah.
vulnerability, then you can like bond
Yeah.
better. But
There's
um,
a lot of interesting when we start to work in these other realms, and remember what we do in realms outside of our time and space that we're experiencing. When we're doing this, it affects this time and space. So, like it's as above, so below, right? So when we work on that side of things, and it's one of the most interesting things that Eric started teaching me is, your work is not only the sessions you show up for. Your work is not only videos and all of those things. Your work is not only your day-to-day life and how you conduct yourself, but as you work in these other realms of spirit, other people don't know. I mean, we don't often, we're sitting here talking about it, but how many times do you really, talk about it outside of that to everyone to explain the in-depth experience? I know many people watching can understand. You work in these other realms with other spirits or in whatever capacity it is. I know people that cross souls all the time. That is what they do. They expect it. They know they're going to have some come. And because of that work, remember that's affecting your life in this world as well. So the abundance, the love, the compassion, all of those things, the giving, but just like in our physical life, we need to also respect ourselves and our boundaries and all of those things in that life because it's all part and parcel. And again, why it's so important to stay grounded. Because if you don't stay grounded, how easily can you live in those upper chakras and in that other world and completely
Yeah.
lose touch of your physical experience, which
Yeah.
you don't want to
Well,
do.
what's
It
really
really sucks.
interesting too is it actually did have like a really big impact on my physical experience. I lost my voice like the next day. I was completely hoarse
Mm,
and I had this cough. There was a third soldier that I felt like kind of his energy kind of got stuck with me for a while, and I feel like he
mhm,
was the
mhm.
cough. And
Yeah.
then I eventually later, I don't know, like a day or two later, was able to cross him as well.
Mhm,
Um, but it is interesting how it has such a like profound impact on your physical body too.
mhm, mhm. That's all
So
part
I
of
probably
learning.
wasn't grounded, is what I'm trying to get at.
You weren't no, at that point in time, because that was, earlier stages of your understanding of yourself, right? So if that
Yeah,
were to happen today, you wouldn't experience and you would recognize it very quickly. If you started to feel something, if you had
yeah,
energy that wasn't yours that was lodged in you, you feel it.
yeah.
And that's, when we are continuously mindful of our energy, then and we're grounded, yes, then we can understand, okay, this isn't mine. There's something going on here and we can take care of it. But that won't happen to you today because you understand it, right? So once we
Okay.
move past these certain experiences and we master them or we get it, we don't generally go through it again unless we say kind of get off the beaten path in some way like I did this summer when I got sick and had to reground and and those things are important because again,
You've been
we're human.
so healthy since too, I have to
I have
say.
yes. Yes, I've
Very
been very
proud of
healthy.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've had a couple little mini viruses that got from my son, but they were very short-lived. So, yeah.
good.
Yeah, but I've been good. Yeah. So, is there anything else that really stands out that you think would be like
A
anything
good
I think you've
start.
talked about it before like with those noises, like the popping and banging noises that you've
Oh, yeah.
heard, like you hear a lot.
So my other one, I can't remember if I've told this. I think I've told this story, but this is my other one that just like really was a perspective shifter for me. So, I believed in angels as like a little kid, but then like I don't know, something happened. I stopped thinking about angels, like they weren't. Or I feel like a lot of times too, it was like as I got into this, because I feel like when you're brought up in a religious atmosphere, it's like there's a hierarchy. Like we the parishioners we're just here and all we can do is just pray. But then like
Mhm.
the priest, he can talk to so and he can do
Right.
this and that, right? And so you're like you don't feel like you're worthy enough to like
Yeah.
have these experiences with higher level beings, I guess. Um,
Mhm.
so I never thought that I could like they're the people that talk to angels, but they're the people that talk to angels. Like I don't talk to
Mhm.
angels, you know, like
Mhm. Mhm.
there's definitely like a hierarchy. I don't know. At least
Mhm.
that's what I thought. So when we started talking about angels, I was like, I'm gonna like start asking for help with angels. So I said, and a lot of it had to do with like protection, and like they talk a lot about how the angels can put a lot of protection around you. And so every young medium needs to ground and protect. I always say ground, protect, ground, protect. So part of my protection was I'm going to ask the angels to, I said, to, this is my way to have them protect me, to stand on my roof. I said, I called in 3 angels and I asked them to stand on my roof, and I visualized them flying in and standing right on like the pitch of my roof. And anyways, and then I tried to go to bed. Well, then I hear my, literally like 5 seconds after I visualize that, my son just starts screaming. And he is not like, that's not what he does. Like, if he's scared, he'll come get me. Like, he won't just like be
Yeah.
paralyzed in his room, right? And I was like, oh my God. So like run upstairs to his room, like, are you okay? And he goes, I hear something walking on the roof. And I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I just called in the angels.
Oh,
This is the
that's
first time I've
amazing.
ever done it. And like, you hear them. So that was really cool. That was really
Yeah.
big validation that what we ask, we receive.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that like, you know, we had 2 people experiencing it. Like I visualized it and then he heard it. So that was
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
that was a big mind shifter for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Those experiences are, they're unforgettable when you have them. They
Hmm.
really are, and they
Hmm.
are very shifting. I'll tell my one that I've
Yes.
told many times, but the eyeball one is my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Like, definitely the favorite of when I was, meditating in a hotel bathroom, and this is very early in my journey, and this big red eye appeared, like a third eye, on the wall of the bathroom, and it was blinking. Okay, it was blinking at me, and I was staring at it, and I hear so loud and clear, and what sounded like that, it's the guy that does Darth Vader's voice, or um, Darth Vader, God, um, Morgan Freeman. That's who I'm thinking of, and that's what the voice sounded like, and he goes, "Are you ready for this?" And I remember it like echoed, and it was very audible. Like, it wasn't in my head. It was out in the. It was echoing in the bathroom, and I was like, yes. Because I was meditating, like, I was
So who do
actively
you think it
speaking to
was?
spirit.
Who do you think the voice was?
The only thing my mind goes to is, like, my higher self, source. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. Although now that I'm saying that, I'm getting, that name Thoth, 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 Thoth.
Oh, that's right.
So, and it's funny that I would never investigate really who that was.
Yeah.
Like, I just took it for what it was, a spiritual experience, but there was a lot of things happening at that time, like a lot of um, very physical experiences. Like, I was getting a lot of like sparks. Like, I touch things and there'd be blue sparks coming under my hands. Like, just touching a table and I'd see a blue spark go, and just little things like that. And being in the laundry room, and I'd be putting laundry in the washer, and things are being thrown at me. And like this, nobody's home, like nobody's around me, and I remember this little lid to a perfume bottle. That's what it looked like, got thrown at me, and like there's nobody missing the lid to anything. Like, we don't know where it came from. I was walking around going, is this yours? Is this yours? Like, it was like a little gold ball that had a little hole in the bottom, like it would fit on top of something. No
Yeah.
idea where it came from, you know? And there was
Oh my
another
gosh.
time, and
That's
this
kind of
was,
crazy.
yeah, this was, I'm trying to think, this was maybe not last year, the year before, and 2 years ago. I had gotten really sick, and it was right. Elisa had done some scalar work on me, and at that time when she was doing scalar work, I was releasing big, like a lot. So I could get sick for a couple days, and I was kind of anticipating it. And I think this one, I can't remember if she did some work on me or maybe she did afterwards. But anyway, I had just woke up one Saturday morning. I was so sick. I thought I had the flu or something. And my family all left the house and went because we had plans to do something. And I just stayed home and stayed in bed. And I developed this rash all over my body. And now I was not hallucinating because I know I did not hallucinate this, but I was laying there and just talking. And I was talking to Eric and just saying, like, okay, like, I'm really done with this sick stuff. Like, I've had enough of it. I don't want to go through this anymore. I'm done with it. I've had enough of it. And I was repeating these things in my head, just saying, like, if there's anything else I need to experience, can I experience it another way? And I look out of the corner of my eye and see movement. And my son's teddy bear was in a basket at the end of my bed. And it was just a little small white, we called him coconut bear. And I watched it elevate and go at me. Teddy bear just whipped at me. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And that whole experience, actually went in an ambulance that day and went to the hospital, and I was really sick, and they admitted me that night, and I was in the hospital for, I think, 24 hours. And that whole experience was like names of nurses, like everybody that showed up, I was cared for so well. Not that I haven't been anytime I've been there, but I can't remember the name now, and I probably have it written down somewhere. But there was a name that Eric gave me, and I remember the nurse had the same name, right?
Oh,
Like,
wow.
just to show me how everything was going to be okay. And it was just a really weird experience. But having things physically move and whip at me. But I think the biggest thing for me was the orbs, and still is the amount
Yeah.
of, just the orbs and the faces in them,
Okay,
you know?
so that's another kind of crazy thing. So, question of space and time. I'll have a thought, and
Mhm.
if it's about someone, I'll like, if it's a female that I'm having a thought about, bam, I'm pinged on my female side. If it's a male, bam, I'm
Mhm.
pinged on my male side. We were driving in the car. Actually, I have several examples of this. Okay, hello. I feel somebody right now. We were driving in the car, and like I had like a good thought, well, there was the one where I told you about, like, where the guy was driving in the Porsche, and I had that like very empathetic, like, I'm so glad that that man feels so safe that he
Yeah,
can,
yeah,
spend his money on something so expensive. And like I had that thought, and then bing, there was a orb in the sky right above his car. And I don't know, whenever I see them in the sky, I always think they're angels. I don't know if they are,
yeah,
but they just
yeah,
they're they just are so
yeah,
majestic that I just feel like they
yeah,
are. And
yeah,
so, like, as an angel. And then, like, the other day, Josh and I were talking about like giving to a charity, and then it was like bing, and I saw it like the second like we had like mentioned the idea, it just binged, and I'm like, oh my
yeah,
gosh, like I guess those were, well, the one was verbal out loud, but all the rest were thoughts, and I'm like,
yeah.
how many thought did they hear all my thoughts? Like what's
Because they all have
and like
vibration,
right.
right?
Right. Well, that
Thoughts
is
carry
what I like
vibration.
kinda came to the conclusion. I was like, "Oh my
Yeah,
gosh," because like Metatron talks about, be careful what you think because like your thoughts have more impact than what you would imagine. And like thoughts create our reality and thoughts have energy and thought like, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's true." Like, because everything exists in thought form before it gets created in physical form. So like our
that's
thoughts,
right.
yeah. So that is
And they're
that's crazy
and they're
to me.
floating around too, right? They're floating around
Yeah.
because if you think about the collective, so there's like the big brain, the collective brain, and then our mind, right? And we're receivers. So if everything's vibration, when we put thoughts out into the world, we're putting energy out into the world. And that is a very real thing. The same with our emotions. But see, if we are not mindful of what is ours and what is not ours, and working with our boundaries, we can potentially attach ourselves to these feelings and thoughts And say if we've got something going on in our life that creates a little bit of anxiety, that attracts that energy, right? So that amplifies what's going on with us. That amplifies that feeling and will feel like
Mm.
us until we understand the discernment of it, because there is a collective energy that's going on, right? I think that's the easiest way to explain it. But then we've got the higher mind, right? So what we want to do is we want to be able to use our brain and our mind to be able to put things into action, to receive from the higher mind, have our boundaries, have our understanding of what we feel like, so that we create clarity and space, so that we're not carrying around all of these intrusive thoughts or these extra things that we don't need. And so we're bringing these higher minded thoughts into our reality so that we can use the mind to create.
Wow.
Right? I have to draw a lot of diagrams to understand a lot of the
Oh
things
my gosh.
that I draw
Do
it
you ever
all out in
get
a
it where
diagram.
like, yeah, like something comes in and you're like, gosh, that makes sense. And then like,
Yeah,
you're like, we'll never forget. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, wow, nope, lost it all. Like that was
yeah,
just way
yeah,
too complex for me.
yeah. That's why I've got a lot of art books. Like really,
Yeah.
because that is the way that I work through a lot of the concepts, understand them. And some of the concepts that I get, I have to work through them for a while to really cement them, because you can get a concept, then you start to experience things that the concept matches to.
Oh,
So
that's
then you
cool.
want to work with it before you display it to other people or
Yeah.
explain it in any kind of right.
Would you be willing maybe one show to like talk us through your artwork and like tell us
Yeah,
about it? I
yeah,
know it's very personal,
yeah,
but that would be
absolutely.
really cool.
No, absolutely. That's how I manifest. That's how with journals and with my artwork is how I work through a lot of emotional stuff. Like that's my heart. Like I'm a writer. I'm a writer and an artist. That's what I really like. I love to do that. So I use that. I get a lot of joy from that, and I use that to work through a lot of things. But yeah, I would love to share my art and talk about that. So we'll plan a show and do that sometime. I should
Okay.
post more of it. I really should. I don't. I tend to post a lot of my writing and quotes and things like that, but I should post more of my art because I've got a lot of it just kind of sitting there right now. And I do a lot of orb art. Like I do the watercolor and I let the faces come out of the watercolor, and then I'll sit and bring all the faces in. And so I've done it where and I don't do it for like I do it for myself, but I also do it if somebody has an art order. And I don't do it for everyone because not everybody's energy is bringing that through, or that's what the need is. But I think it would be really fun to do one of those and do it for our collective watching, to see if anyone recognizes any of the
Any
faces that
people?
come through.
That would
Yeah.
be so cool. That would
I
be
think we
really
should do
cool.
that. And then
Yeah.
what we'll do is just call upon everyone's higher selves when I do the artwork, and then we'll display some pictures and then just see what happens, see if we recognize any.
That would be really
Yeah,
cool. I would love
because
that. Yeah.
they all come through. Sometimes they're ancestors, relatives, guides, spirit animals, past animals, all kinds of things. So that would be really fun to test that out and see what we get.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Just like
Look,
a group
can
art
we do it
reading.
next week? Can we do it next week? Please, please, please,
Yeah,
please, please.
let's do it. Yeah, I think
Okay,
so.
let's do
Let's
it
do
next
that.
week.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Well, I guess we've got ourselves to the end of another mentorship Monday.
Yes. I loved
Yeah.
it. I love, time and space blows my mind.
Yeah.
Um, we could probably talk
We'll
about
have
that
to
for
do
5 more
more.
episodes.
Yeah, we'll have to do more on this, and like I said, there's a lot that I'm practicing myself right now too, and I like to be able to explain it in a way that I understand better when I've experienced more of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can channel about it, but it's another thing when you're actually working through it and
Mm-hmm.
experiencing it
Yeah.
yourself. So
Yep.
yeah. All right.
All right. Well, thank
Well,
you, everyone. Thank you,
thanks
Michelle, as
everybody. Really helpful.
always.
Yes, always.
My favorite time of the week is when I get to meet with you. So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
I love it too. It's awesome. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next Monday. And good luck with all of your holiday prepping or anything that you're doing. So we're all going to be doing the same thing and bending
Yes.
space and time to make things happen.
Yes. Yes. Let us know how that goes to get your whole
Yeah,
to-do list done.
that's right. All right.
All right. Have
Take
a
care.
great week. Bye.
Bye.